What's going on, guys? So I have been on the road now for about 35 minutes. I had to take a quick trip out to Padre Island to run an errand, and I've had some time to spend in this 2023 F150. This is essentially a work truck package, but with the STX appearance trim, which gives you a lot of really cool interior upgrades, the 8-inch navigation screen, a backup camera, which I think is pretty much standard now, aluminum wheels, color-matched bumpers. It's just a really cool package to get on a pickup truck because it equips the truck really well for someone who may want to keep this truck as their normal everyday vehicle, while at the same time still having a lot of work characteristics that they're looking for in a truck. But yeah, now that we've been driving for a little while, I can definitely give you more of a first-hand impression of what it's like. As you guys are probably aware, I recently test drove an XLT. It was a 2022 model with the same 2.7 liter EcoBoost V6, 325 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque. And it was a really fun, nice, smooth, quiet truck to drive with plenty of get up and go, plenty of horsepower and torque. And this is pretty much the same, except this is a four-wheel drive truck in a slightly lower trim package. This will definitely save you some money if you're going for this package, especially considering this is a four-wheel drive truck, whereas the other one was a two-wheel drive. But at the end of the day, I mean, I gotta admit, it's a nice truck. It's got plenty of oomph. When you hit the accelerator, the thing really wants to take off. It has plenty of power, gets reasonable fuel economy. I've been averaging about 17.5 miles per gallon in this truck since I've been driving it, and I've only put about 55 miles on it. So it's definitely still in that break-in period. 1,703 pounds worth of payload capacity in this truck. The only luxury features that this truck is really missing that separate it from a truck maybe 10 or 15 years ago that was like a top trim, a high super luxury package, would be memory seats. Well, in some cases they didn't even have memory seats, but leather interior, and I think there was one other thing that I spotted on it, but that's pretty much it. Leather interior, memory seats, oh, and power seats. That's the other one. This doesn't have memory seats because it doesn't have power seats. And even if you have power seats, memory seats is still an option. But if you added power seats to this truck and a leather interior, you would have a package that has far more tech and capabilities than a truck that would be a high-spec truck like a Lariat or a King Ranch from 10 to 15 years ago. Not even kidding you. This has LTE, so it can actually broadcast internet service. Again, navigation system, 8-inch display. It's a world above what you could get 15 years ago. The back seat legroom, as most of you know, since about 2005 or so, Ford has really extended the length of their crew cab truck, and this is no different. This truck has a tremendous amount of rear seat legroom, rear seat space, and the comfort of this truck is just far and above anything you could get up until recently. I mean, half-ton trucks have just become incredibly comfortable, incredibly sport utility-like when it comes to driving. They definitely are far more refined than they've ever been. And in some ways, yeah, you sacrifice a little bit of that truck feel, but I think people are looking for a comfortable ride, especially if you pay as much money as these trucks cost these days. You know, I picked this truck up from the folks over at AutoNation Ford over here in Corpus Christi, and every time I go and pick up another vehicle and I test drive it and I feel it out, it's surprising how much more refined the different year models are. And this specific one, again, it feels, actually, here's a better way of putting it. It feels more comfortable and refined than the Ford Explorer that we have, which you can argue to say is a far more luxurious, family-moving vehicle. Trucks have now become that family vehicle. And especially when you look at them from a comfort perspective, they've been designed to allow people who have normally expected to get this type of comfort and luxury from an SUV or a sedan to be able to get into a pickup truck and still experience it. Now, as you move up in capability and you move up to like a 3/4 ton or a 1-ton truck, of course, those trucks are going to have far firmer suspensions because they're really designed for towing. They're designed for payload capacity. They're designed for utility. Whereas a pickup truck like this, you know, with a short bed, you could argue to say that this is for those weekend warriors that might need to go to Lowe's every other weekend to pick up some lumber, pick up some sod, pick up some tools, furniture, stuff that they're not going to constantly be working the truck out with. Or maybe they will be. Maybe you will use this for a work truck. Maybe it's going to be for, you know, folks who do welding or folks who have to pick up materials and they go to auction every weekend and they need to load the bed of a truck up with something and they don't want a super high trim truck. They just want something that'll get the job done. with extra capability that they just can't get out of a sedan or sport utility vehicle. And that's really the power of the modern day half-ton pickup truck. It's the Swiss Army knife of trucks. With over 1,700 pounds worth of payload capacity in this truck, you could even haul a reasonably sized trailer. You know, you can get up into that 7,500 pound range to haul a trailer, so long as you're careful with it. You have the proper brake controller set up, and you're set up with the trailer that has good weight distribution and balance. But at the end of the day, again, these trucks have become super utility vehicles because they give you all the comfort you're looking for to keep the family happy when you're hauling the family, the kids around, the wife around. They give you the capability to haul a good-sized travel trailer around. They give you the capability of going to Lowe's and Home Depot and picking up relatively heavy stuff and being able to use the bed for that kind of stuff, plus taking your bikes out, you know, doing things like that, all the sport utility stuff that you typically would want, plus all the accessories that they make for these trucks, bed covers, roof racks, you know, step sides, all the things that you would want, you can get in a pickup truck now. And in the past, the one big sacrifice you always had to live with was ride comfort. And now you don't have to live with poor suspension or, you know, a rough ride. You have a vehicle that very much is going to give you the overall ride comfort characteristics that you're looking for in a sedan. And before, you'd have to kind of determine if you wanted an SUV and you wanted to sacrifice the sedan ride. But now you have a vehicle that gives you a sedan, maybe even like a luxury SUV type experience, but in a pickup truck form, which pickup trucks are, you know, arguably some of the best-selling vehicles in the country. I know the F150 was like one of the best-selling vehicles of all time, and people expect that level of refinement year over year. And everything about this truck just feels refined, feels incredibly smooth, feels very comfortable, feels as if this is the type of truck you could spend a lot of time in, you could go on a long trip in. And if you're willing to sacrifice some of the luxury amenities from a higher spec truck like a Lariat or a King Ranch, you know, this truck is going to equip you with a lot of the things you're looking for, and maybe none of the things you're not looking for. Do you need memory seats? If you don't pay for them in this truck. Do you need power seats? If you don't pay for them in this truck. Do you need an 11-inch display up front? Probably not. I'm perfectly happy with an 8-inch display that comes in the F450 I have, and you get that exact same display in here, but with Sync 4, which is the next generation of its connectivity software. Power seats, power windows, power door locks, keyless entry. It's not push button start, but a lot of people don't care for push button start. So if you don't need that, you don't want that, then you have a truck that's going to come equipped in a package with the luxury features you may want, but none of the luxury features you don't think you need. And that's really what the value play here. Plus the fact it has a rear locking differential. This has a very powerful 2.7 liter V6. Now you'd have to get over that. If you're typically the type of person that thinks, you know, I want a manly truck, oftentimes that goes with the mentality that you want big displacement. You need this big beefy V8 engine. And if you have always felt that way, you should probably go to a dealership and just drive one of these trucks with a small displacement V6 that's turbocharged. It'll put a smile on your face that, honestly, the V8 truck you drive today may not. That's how powerful these things are. Plus, you're going to get better fuel economy. It's going to be arguably more reliable. It may be a little harder for you to work on yourself versus, you know, some of the old Chevy 350s and the 305s and those legacy engines that they replaced. But it's going to give you a lot more for a lot less, and it's not going to take away from your payload capacity, which is nice, and you'll probably be under warranty for a long period of time. So these are all things that are definitely pluses when it comes to looking at some of these newer engines, which may be smaller in displacement, but much, much greater in overall power and torque. I mean, you have to think about what you had to do to an old 350 or an old 305 back in the day to be able to get 325 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. And I say that because, you know, 20 years ago, those numbers were numbers that you would really have to modify an engine, void the warranty, and do different things that essentially made the engine work harder than it was designed to work for its application. And now you get those features in these trucks. And a payload capacity of over 1,700 pounds, this truck is going to rival a lot of 3/4 ton trucks from 10 to 15 years ago. And there's a lot to be said about that. Now, 10 to 15 years ago is probably a little bit of, I'm being a little conservative there, only because 10 years ago was when Ford introduced like the 2011, 2012 model of the Super Duty, which was an all-new truck, new Power Stroke engine, and those trucks have been able to put down quite a bit of power over the last 10 years. You'd have to go back more like 15 years, 20 years, and then that's really where you start to see the huge differences. Now, of course, price was a big difference then as well, because trucks back then were a fraction of the cost as they are now, but they didn't have the tech, they didn't have the capabilities, they didn't have the comfort, they didn't have a lot of that, and inflation itself have created the market conditions that have allowed trucks to get up there in price the way they are. But salaries and income have also gone up significantly. People are making a lot more money today than they were making 15, 20 years ago. So everything kind of factors in, and everything kind of plays a role into determining the truck you see today on a dealership lot and why it costs as much as it does and why it's built the way it's built, why it uses the technology it uses. It's an expectation today that just didn't exist 20 years ago. But I'd love to have this conversation with you guys. Leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you guys think. And if you have a great question, it may appear on my BTBRV Life channel, so definitely subscribe to that channel as well. Anyways, guys, we're going to take this truck back to AutoNation. It's been an absolute blast driving it around. Definitely exceeded my expectations of what a base trim truck with an appearance package would be able to do. I mean, it's really awesome. This truck is such a cool truck, still relatively expensive, over 50 grand, but you get so much more today than you could have ever gotten in the past for that 50 grand. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.